Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Video Game Cemetery, the place where I talk about all things related to retro video games. Today, I'm going to take a trip back to the year 1999 to take a look at one of my favourite handheld releases at the time, Bubble Bobble Metro 3D on the Game Boy Color. So, what do I think about Bubble Bobble Metro 3D on the Game Boy Color? Quite honestly, I love it. I played this game when it first came out, and so I do have a lot of nostalgia for it. But even if you take that away, the game still holds up as a great Bubble Bobble adventure. You play as Bub, and your objective is to traverse through the many levels in order to find the magic water for your brother Bob, who is unwell for some reason. The game never really clarifies why. This, of course, is the same story used in Bubble Bobble on the original Game Boy, although for some reason, Bub is the only one still under the dragon curse in that version. Despite the story being the same basic plot, Bubble Bobble Metro 3D is a very different game in all other respects. Firstly, instead of being in a plain looking room, we're treated to a whole new atmosphere created by the beautiful background themes, and this really brings the Bubble Bobble world to life. Each set of levels has a boss that represents that theme, and once beaten, you'll be taken to a new themed world with a new background, so you can really feel the change in the atmosphere here. For example, you start off in the forest levels, but only up until you have beaten the first boss, the forest boss. There are many different monsters in the game, all from the original Bubble Bobble, with the exception of the bosses, which now include a few new and exclusive ones, and all of them offer a very decent challenge. Even the first boss, the giant beluga that called himself Grape, took me a while to figure out his pattern when I first reached him. The stoners in this game have a really strange colour palette though, and I'm not too sure why. How come they don't have red eyes like the usual? I mean, the enemies turn red when they're pissed off, so it's not like the colour isn't in the game's palette already. Also, how the fuck is this 3D? Now, as beautiful as the game is to look at, it's not without its problems however. For one thing, the controls do feel a little bit stiff at times, and that can be a bit of a problem when trying to avoid Sawbones, which arrives when you take too long finishing a level. And because Sawbones is very quick, not to mention invincible, you do find yourself running into him quite a bit when he appears. The stiffness of the controls also seem to go hand in hand with the game's lag. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong, as I said I love this game, but it seems to run considerably slower than some of the other handheld Bubble Bobble titles. For example, Bubble Bobble Part 2 on the original Game Boy ran so smoothly, it was just so perfect, so I was a little surprised to see Bubble Bobble Metro 3D have these kinds of issues. It also has a few other minor problems, such as enemies trapped in bubbles not popping when you jump into them, and buggy hit detection at times. Now, you may notice that like many other handheld versions of Bubble Bobble, the game suffers a bit of a screen crunch. This seems to bother a ton of people, but in all honesty, it never bothered me at all with the Bubble Bobble games. Obviously, you're going to have the odd run-in with a monster that you can't see below or above you, but overall, it's just never really bothered me or personally taken away my enjoyment from the gameplay. Maybe I'm just used to it. As I said, I played these games when they first came out, so naturally, I'll have adjusted to these changes in that time. As for the difficulty, the game gives you 3 hit points, and if you get hit 3 times, you get a game over. There are no lives, just the one, but every level has a password, and you're given this password upon being killed, so you never have to go back several levels if you fail. I think this was a pretty decent decision personally, especially back in the day when I sucked a whole lot more at it. As I said earlier though, the biggest difficulty of this game, I feel, is the sometimes bad hit detection and stiff controls. And these fucking bastards with their fucking rocks! So yeah, the game has flaws, a few bugs here and there, some strange colour palette choices, and even the odd moment when you want to throw your Game Boy through the fucking wall. But overall, Bubble Bobble Metro 3D, in my honest opinion, is a fantastic game. A must-have for any fan of the Bubble Bobble series, and most definitely deserves a place on the shelves of the Video Game Cemetery. Thanks for watching. gentlemen, to the Video Game Cemetery, the home to all things retro video games. And today, we're going to be looking at this game, Bubble Bobble Part 2 on the NES. Okay, so let me start by saying that Bubble Bobble Part 2 is a very confusing title. This title has been used for 4 different games. The NES version, which is what we'll be reviewing here today, a Game Boy version, which is still my favourite one of all time, and also titled Bubble Bobble Jr. in other regions, Bubble Bobble Symphony, and also Rainbow Islands 2, which is considered the true official sequel. I'm not sure why there are so many alternate versions, but let me say from the get-go that every single one of these is drastically different from the other. They are in fact completely different games. I will cover all of these eventually, but for now, let's talk about the one at hand, the NES version. This game has become quite rare. You'll have to pay quite a bit to grab a box copy, and even a single cartridge is pretty bloody expensive, but that just makes me love it all the more. This is a forgotten, lost treasure. Okay, so let's bung it in the Retron, and away we go. The story of this game shows Bub and his girlfriend just chilling out under a tree, when suddenly, these no good little bastards ambush them and capture Bub's girlfriend, dragging her off kicking and screaming, while this other bastard places Bub under his all too familiar curse, transforming him into a dragon. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't a certain someone try doing this exact thing before in a previous game? I remember they did, and I remember that it worked wonders and nothing went wrong whatsoever. Oh wait, yes it did! Why the hell would you turn Bub into the very dragon that gives him super bubble abilities that once led to the previous villain's downfall? He's not going to just let you take his girlfriend. You've given him the abilities needed to stop you with your stupid fucking curse. Why did you make the same mistake as the last guy? Anyway, they do, and Bub's girlfriend is captured. So now, as a bubble dragon, he embarks on a quest to save her. As it will turn out, she had been captured by the Skull Brothers, a group of Grim Reaper looking bosses, or as Sawbones in a robe. Quite different to the Game Boy version in which you are faced with a giant one of these motherfuckers, known as Great Skull. But that's for another video. I think the biggest mystery here is that Bob isn't mentioned whatsoever in the intro to this game. So where the hell is he? Now let's deal with the elephant in the room here for a moment. Bub's put on weight. Like a lot. He's bigger than most standard monsters in this game. What the fuck happened to him? The first thing you'll notice in this game, apart from Bub's weight gain, is how beautiful everything looks. You're presented with a bright fairy tale world filled with magical monsters and wizards, and everything feels like being a toddler again. I know that's a strange way to explain it, but I really can't put it any better. Being an NES game, this is of course 8-bit, which means there is a limited colour palette. But the game works well with what it's got pretty well, I think. After the first 10 levels, for example, and after you've beaten the first boss, the palette changes, allowing for a different look on the newer levels. This causes certain sprites to become coloured rather weirdly, but it doesn't really distract from the game. In truth, the visuals are handled very well indeed. Many of the monster sprites, for example Beluga, are the same ones, albeit in colour, as the ones used in the Game Boy version of Bubble Bobble Part 2. I think this might be why Bub looks so big, because his sprite is unique to this game, not a handheld alternative. The gameplay is smooth as well. Jumping about, shooting bubbles, popping enemies, this all feels very good and flows very nicely. However, shoot too many bubbles on the screen at once or allow too many enemies, and you'll notice some considerable slowdown and lag. This doesn't break the game, and it returns to normal as soon as the bubbles or enemies are popped or removed, but it can throw you off a little. I played this game on the Retron HD when preparing for this video, and I think it ran great overall. And personally, I think the gameplay is excellent. Not perfect, but excellent. Speaking of not perfect, I have to bring some attention to some serious fucking bullshit this game offers too. Some levels are designed, I swear, to piss you right the fuck off. This motherfucking helicopter monster is hard to reach, and therefore hard to hit. And he spawns an endless amount of other monsters which result in the lag I was talking about, and also results in getting F'd in the A far too many times for my liking. You actually have to hold down shoot to float up to its height and hit it as it appears before it flies into you and fucking kills you, and that is bullshit with all the crap going on screen at once. Also, You can only float up at this exact spot. Fuck this shit. The same can be said for this tosser and his missiles. He walks back and forth firing rockets at you which are nearly impossible to avoid, while these invader fuckers are fucking up your shit too. And the only time you can attempt to get up there and kill him is when he waits to be wound up again. Also, you can only get up there from this exact spot. Fuck this shit. And I can't even tell you how frustrated I got with the 5th boss. This fucking bird bastard had me in tears of frustration. After spending over an hour trying to kill this prick, I finally got him into stage 2, in which he becomes a bald bird bastard. And then he killed me. Again, and again, and a fucking again, until I was in tears, on the floor, in a heap, crying like a bitch. And then I came back and fucked him up. Take that, you bollocking bird bastard ball bag bitch! Ha! And then I was greeted with another level with that fucking wind-up rocket tosser. Fuck. This game is not good for my ulcer. Okay, now I know I might sound like I'm hating on this game here, but honestly, I'm not. I love the hell out of this game, despite the stress it can give you at certain points. There are, after all, some very relaxed parts of the game. Even bosses. I mean, look at boss 1. He's so easy, I almost feel sorry for him. Oh, look, he was a tiny Zentian. How cute. Pop, you're dead! I'm a dick. This game is hardly ever spoken of when it comes to the Bubble games, which is a shame. But it will always have a home here, on the shelves of the video game cemetery. So yeah, Bubble 2 is excellent and very underrated and kind of a lost treasure. And I think everyone should play it, so go do that. Not that you want to listen to me, of course. Look at me, standing here like a fucking twat. In my Bubble shirt. Talking about a game over 30 years old. Fuck am I doing with my life? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, home to the forgotten, lost and dead retro video games of the past. And of course home to horror titles. And today we'll be taking a look at my top 12 horror video games of all time. This would have been a top 10, but I just couldn't squeeze them all in. Do not expect to see the expected tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because my taste is very different to the masses. And I believe that these 12, personally, are the top scariest horror games of all time. On a side note, anybody that knows me knows I'm absolutely petrified of robots. So I'm not including any games that include robots or AI or cyborgs or anything like that. This is a top 12 horror games that were meant to be horror games, not just horrifying because of my robophobia. With that said, let us enter the top 12 horror video games of all time. Coming in at number 12, Forbidden Siren on the PS2. Forbidden Siren has unfortunately fallen into the realm of the lost. The last game to get a release was Blood Curse on the PS3, which was great, but unfortunately there has been no new entries since. It did get a re-release on the PS4 as a digital download, not physical sadly, but there has been no mentions of any new ones since Blood Curse, which is a great shame considering how bloody amazing this series is. This is true survival horror, but unlike most survival horror games in which you're limited with ammo and forced to reserve healing items etc, this one leaves you pretty much defenseless for the most part. Your best chance at surviving this horrible situation is using stealth and your ability to sightjack, which allows you to psychically see through the eyes of other people and also the monsters. Your main enemy in this game are the Shibito, which translates to corpse people. They are the demonically possessed corpses of dead humans, but retain intelligence. They go about their everyday lives until they spot you, and when they do, you're as good as dead. For those that don't know, Forbidden Siren was created by some of the original team that worked on Silent Hill, Team Silent, which probably explains why it's so bloody disturbing. Coming in at number 11, we have Resident Evil 7 on the PS4.
We're gonna be a family now that you're here.
I felt I had to include at least one Resident Evil game on this list, and if we're going for horror, Resident Evil 7 is quite possibly one of the best horror games of all time, not just in the Resident Evil series. Resident Evil games have been in a serious decline for a very long time, since the release of the ridiculously action-packed and not scary at all, Resident Evil 5, which had a heavy emphasis on cooperative play and playing as a steroid-freak incarnation of Chris Redfield. But Resident Evil 7 fixed all of that mess. Resident Evil 7 doesn't put you in the shoes of a well-armed, well-trained Marine or a cop or any Special Forces members. It puts you in the shoes of Ethan, a normal, defenseless man in search of his missing, presumed dead wife, Mia Winters, who sent him a video message 3 years after her disappearance, telling him to stay away. Away from what? Well, supposedly a creepy old cabin down south. Upon hearing that she might still be alive, of course, Ethan goes to the very place he was told to stay away from, and after he makes his way into the cabin, he finds Mia locked up in the cellar. After she sees him, she tries to tell him that they need to escape, and as you do your best to get you both to safety, well, look, I'm not even going to tell you what happens. Just have a look for yourself.
Way back inside of me. Get out! Leave me alone! I've been bad. I deserve this.
So Mia is possessed in some serious Evil Dead 1's Linda style with a bit of Mia from Evil Dead 4 for good measure. Do I even need to explain why this game is on this list beyond this point? It's a fucking masterpiece, and the fact you're a defenseless man in first-person mode, putting you into the game personally instead of some overpowered soldier, means it feels like you are living a true nightmare. And it just gets better from here. Well deserving of this list. You outdid yourselves here, Capcom. Now please fix Claire's face in Resident Evil 2's remake. Coming in at number 10, we have Evil Dead Hail to the King on the PS1. Groovy.
We decided to go back to the cabin. Back to where it all started. She said it would be good to face my fears. Big mistake.
This game got a whole lot of hate from critics and Resident Evil fans when it came out. It was considered a Resident Evil clone because of its fixed camera angles, pre-rendered backgrounds and limited inventory space, but hey, Alone in the Dark created that style, not Resident Evil, and all survival horror games of the time did this, so what's your fucking problem? This game would have been a lot higher on this list, but I must admit, I had trouble ordering these. So just trust me when I say, this game is fucking scary at times. Despite Bruce Campbell talking smack constantly, this game used to give me chills. Just walking around the infamous cabin of the very movies that gave me night terrors as a child, and fighting off these incorporeal spirits that possessed all of Ash's friends in the movies, was a real chiller for me, and that doesn't even include the amazing first boss, which, in my view, is the best one. I won't spoil it for you, but I'll tell you now, she lives in the attic of the redneck hut to the right of the cabin. Just go out and play it. And if you're having trouble with the respawning demons, here's some advice. When you first decide to leave the cabin, do not go out the front door. Go out the back. The workshed has a safe crate and item storage box there. Then head to that redneck hut. And remember, the Evil Dead was always about constant, persistent demons that kept coming back. So, respawning enemies aren't that big of a deal here. Coming in at number 9, we have the original first Silent Hill. Silent Hill 1. Why Silent Hill 1? Because it's fucking Silent Hill 1, that's why. Fuck off. The best of the entire series. This game has you shitting yourself with its psychological style, and the atmosphere, creatures, and Samael, the demon at the end, are all as creepy as fuck. It pisses me off that in the HD collection on the PS3 that this one was not included. Who cares about the graphics not being as updated as the PS2 titles? It should still have been on there. Go and play this one if you haven't already. It really is top of the range. Coming in at number 8, we have the obscure Martian Gothic on the PS1. Martian Gothic is pretty much what you'd probably call Resident Evil in space with a Doom aesthetic. This wouldn't be a bad description, to be honest, but this game does deserve credit on its own. It's got a very lonely atmosphere, which is funny, because the slogan of this game was something like "Stay alone, stay alive." This game has 3 playable characters, and they are all playable at once, but you must never ever let them meet up, or they will all die by merging together into a monster of some kind. This team of people arrive on Mars to find everybody dead, and some of the dead being supernaturally controlled, either possessed or zombified. It's a really unique take on survival horror, and definitely a favourite of mine. At number 7, we have Cold Fear on the PS2.
These old Russian whalers all stink to high heaven. Open fire! Open fire!
Now this game is sadly one of the few victims of Resident Evil 4's hype. I know I'm mentioning Resident Evil a lot here, but that's because its popularity often overshadowed games of a similar nature that either fell under the radar completely, or was just simply pushed aside to make room for it. Cold Fear is definitely one of those titles. It was initially to be a sequel to Alone in the Dark 4, The New Nightmare, being the next game made by Darkworks Company. Unfortunately, all of its brilliance was completely ignored in favour of Resident Evil 4, as they had a very similar release date. Cold Fear takes a lot of what made Resident Evil successful and blends it with The Thing, Alone in the Dark, and more. It is set entirely on a ship caught in a sea storm, and its mechanics and physics are very impressive. This is a must play for anyone who loves survival horror and somehow missed out on this one.
At least I found the code.
In at number 6 we have Doom on the PS1. Doom is absolutely terrifying. I know what you're thinking. Doom? Scary? It's all about feeling like a badass and kicking demons back to hell. Doom guy ain't scared of nothing. Yes, but I'm referring to Doom on the PlayStation, remember. This game takes what was once a heavy metal, badass, ass-kicking, and makes it a horrific, heart-racing nightmare. Gone are the MIDI rock music files, and instead we now have dark ambient horror music, slow and droning, and the lighting has been turned low with darker shades of blues and reds and greens, and this game feels like doom, like you are actually doomed and lost in hell. Nobody is there with you. Nobody will save you. It's up to you. Just you, alone and scared and doomed. In at number 5 we have Alone in the Dark 4, The New Nightmare on the PS1. Alone in the Dark 4, The New Nightmare was also released on the PS2 and Dreamcast, but this is a PlayStation video, damn it. It was released by Darkworks, and all I can say is they hit the nail right on the head with this one. It's one of the creepiest PS1 survival horror games, and has one of the most interesting and mystifying stories. I don't want to spoil that though, so I'll leave that for you to play and find out yourself. The game is set on Shadow Island, a mysterious place with a large mansion and a fort, in which you can play as one of two characters, Edward Carnby from the original Alone in the Dark games, or Aline Cedric. And when it comes to atmosphere, this game pulls it off so well. Even things that are of no threat just seem to make you on edge and nervous. This is the genius of a well-made horror masterpiece. Unfortunately, the Alone in the Dark movie was based loosely on this game, and that movie was, well, not a horror masterpiece. But don't let that spoil the game for you. This is a must-play. At number 4, Haunting Ground on the PS2.
Where is you?
Everyone talks about Resident Evil as Capcom's amazing horror title, but few people talk about their other, and in my view, even better horror masterpiece, Haunting Ground, also known as Demento in some regions. This game is about Fiona, a girl who ends up in a car accident with her parents, only to wake up in a cage in a gothic castle being guarded by a big something. A simple but scary homunculus of sorts called Debilitus. Fiona escapes her cage and discovered that this castle is full of people that want to kill her. Debilitus is the least of her problems as she discovers Daniela, the maid, who is absolutely terrifying and brilliant in every single way. No spoilers here, but I might be breaking a rule slightly by even mentioning her. Turns out that Fiona has what is known as Azoth, or a soul, and that is why she is so important to the story. It's really hard to talk about this without spoiling it, but I will say this. You have no way to defend yourself. You can kick, but it doesn't do much. You have to hide from your enemies to survive and hope that they don't spot you. You do get to rescue a lovely little dog from a bear trap in the game, and he will attack pursuers for you, but it won't kill them, only slow them down so you can escape. Dogs rock. At number 3, we have Hell Knight on the PS1. Hell Knight is quite possibly one of the most obscure games on this list. It's also known as Dark Messiah in some regions. This game is special because it's doing something that most horror games wouldn't start doing until the modern day indie scene. It's a first-person horror game in which you gain no weapons. You only get one companion with you at a time, and they will give you warnings or advice or alert you to danger. They also take one hit to die, which gives you a chance to escape, but also leaves you with no second chance. Some companions can fight back, but it's not very effective against your pursuer. A zombie. Yep, a single zombie. But make no mistake, if this thing sees you, it can run. Fast. And if that's not bad enough, it changes form as the game goes on until eventually it becomes a full-fledged hell beast that can zip towards you and kill you in a microsecond. This is an example of a game that made me crap myself on so many occasions when I first bought it. It's become quite a collector's item now too. It's really hard to buy a copy for a good price, so prepare to pay a lot of money if you want it. But it's worth it though, trust me. Coming in at number 2, just slightly falling the mark of number 1 place, we have The Suffering on the PS2. The Suffering shares something with Cold Fear. It was overshadowed by Resident Evil 4 upon its release. This is a real shame because this game was an absolute masterpiece. I played the demo and loved it so much that the next day I went out and bought it. My granddad gave me the money, I remember, to shut me up about it. This game's hero is maybe not such a hero. His name is Talk, and he is a convict on death row for the murder of his wife and 2 children. Whether or not he actually did those murders, well, that depends on you and your actions, as Talk claims he blacked the whole event out and doesn't remember it. After being taken to his cell, the lights in the prison start to flicker and creatures begin to pick off the prisoners and the corrections officers, one by one. This allows you to escape your cell and discover that hell has infested the entire prison and the island it's situated on. Each demon represents a different method of execution and are manifestations of that method of dying. It's never made entirely clear why this is happening as soon as you arrive, but maybe it's because one possible outcome of the story is that you yourself are possessed by a demon, and that's why you had those blackouts. Makes sense, considering you literally turn into a monster when your rage meter is full. This game has a similar atmosphere to my number 1 pick. At number 1, the game that I found the most terrifying, the game that gave me the most nightmares in my late childhood and early teen years, and along with the Evil Dead movies, inspired me to study demonology in real life. We have Nightmare Creatures 2 on the PS1. Nightmare Creatures 2. What can I even say about this game? When it came out, it got the worst reviews I ever saw in my entire life. It was recalled several times, and the release date was delayed so much I almost believed it would never get a release. And finally, everyone said it looked and felt horrible to play, and that it was a rip-off of Resident Evil meets Tomb Raider. So, naturally, I knew it would be good, because most people were just saying that because they thought Resident Evil was God and all else should perish. They were wrong. Nightmare Creatures 2 was by far the greatest thing I had ever played. Its atmosphere was dark, eerie, haunting and terrifying all at once. It used a sort of Silent Hill 1 look to its textures and environments, and it had creatures that were straight out of your nightmares. You play as an escaped mental patient named Herbert Wallace, who was once a member of a secret society of demonologists known as the Circle. This organisation was obliterated by Crowley, the evil black magician and scientist, who had created an army of demons using scientific DNA manipulation and out-of-date surgery techniques. And Wallace was one of the unfortunates that Crowley captured to experiment on. The story of this game continues from the first, and I would have included the first game on here also, but this one just gave me so many nightmares that it just had to be the one I included. Even today, when I put this game on, I feel that atmosphere. I can't explain it. It's a cold, empty, melancholic nightmare that is probably something only I can feel. This game does not leave you defenseless. You have an axe at all times, and you can find bullets and spells to fight your foes with. But I would still classify this as a survival horror, because those extra bullets and items are rare and limited. This game is set in London first and then in Paris, and when you get to climb the Eiffel Tower at the end, and there is a fucking big docker climbing up the outside of it that eventually breaks through to where you are, that shit is scary. This game is very hard to get for a good price now. On the Dreamcast it's a lot cheaper, but PS1 will cost you almost £40 just for the disc alone. But it is very, very worth the money, and I think you should all go out and get it now. Right, now just before I end this video, here are a few honourable mentions that I didn't put into my top 12. But I do feel that these ones deserve to be mentioned here. And that's it. Thank you for watching the Video Game Cemetery. I hope you tune in next time for more of my content. Please leave a like or subscribe if you enjoyed my video, and please leave a death threat if you didn't. With that being said, I am out. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, the most hardcore, metal as fuck video game channel of all time. And today, we're going to be looking at the most hardcore, metal as fuck video game of all time. The greatest, most underrated horror video game of all time, and that is Nightmare creatures. If you remember, the winner of my top 12 was the fantastic horror masterpiece known as Nightmare Creatures 2, and I've been saying for a while now that I'll cover the game series in a full, dedicated video. And because I'm a lazy son of a bitch, it's taken me this long to finally get around to it. But in all honesty, I really feel it needed this much time to prepare for such an important video anyway. Nightmare Creatures is, in my honest opinion, the greatest horror video game series of all time. In this video, I'll only be covering the first game. I'll save the second one for part 2. I dedicate this video to the fantastic team behind the creation of Nightmare Creatures, the team formerly known as Callisto Entertainment. So without further ado, let's get down to the video. You want to know how much I love this game? Do you seriously want to know how much I think this is the best horror game of all time? Look. Right? Yeah, I got the fucking Japanese one as well. Dreamcast? Who remembers Dreamcast? The American N64 version, which doesn't usually play in the UK, but I've got an N64 that's been made to play USA games, specially for this one game alone. The PC version. I have everything on this game. Everything. So, what is Nightmare Creatures about then? What is the story of this game that I can't praise enough? Well, the story of Nightmare Creatures is heavily based in historical fact. It follows the hideous acts of black magic practitioner Adam Crowley, a once well-respected alchemist and scientist whose work led him onto the path of demon worship and Satanism. His acts were so evil, so disgusting, that the coven he was a member of, the Brotherhood of Hecate, kicked him out. Let me repeat that. A black coven of satanic witches thought that this guy was too evil. Metal as fuck. You see, the Brotherhood of Hecate were intent on creating an Antichrist figure of sorts. A superhuman that could lead them and guide them into the dark, sadistic pits of devil-worshipping lifestyle. And Adam Crowley was intrigued enough to steal information from these bastards. Most importantly, a secret alchemic formula to create life. How he did this I'll get to in a minute. However, this was not a perfect formula and needed quite a bit of tweaking. You with me? Good. You know the Great Fire of London in 1666? You know that world-famous London fire that everybody learns about in school? Yeah, well, that was caused by Samuel Pepys, the famous historical member of Parliament who would always join lots of social clubs and organisations back in the day. The reason he caused this fire was to destroy the Brotherhood of Hecate's research into genetic manipulation and witchcraft before their evil deeds could cause any real harm. But stupidly, he would also write down that wonky-ass formula into one of his many diaries. And as you can probably guess, Adam Crowley managed to get his hands on it.
His hands defiling the bodies of the dead in his thirst for knowledge and power.
With this, Crowley began messing about with it in his dingy, grotty science lab infested with rats and all kinds of disease, and attempted to make this Antichrist being himself. But, because the formula was not perfected, it produced not superhumans, but monsters. Lots and lots of monsters. And demons. And even zombies. And after a million errors, Crowley just kept trying and trying. But the problem is, all his monsters are let loose wandering around the streets of London, which is where the game picks up. But there is so much more to this story than just that. Obviously, being in the UK, I grew up with the UK version of the game, which had an intro cutscene that scared me so much as a kid that I turned the game off and refused to put it back on to actually play the game until my dad was there to play it with me. I am dead fucking serious. It scared me that much. But get this. The Japanese version contained all the intro that the UK one did, but was far longer and told much more backstory than the UK version did. And it did it with precision. God damn it, the Japanese version for this reason is the best version for backstory, and I really do mean that. Instead of me explaining that to you, I'm just going to play you the Japanese intro in its entirety for you right now, so you can get a grasp on what it's about and really appreciate how great it is. You watch this and tell me it isn't beautifully dark.
At a time when the world was mired in poverty and disorder, the Pepys brothers were devising ways to get success in a yet unknown new world. The two would go on to establish their unique skills and make profound achievements in their respective fields of medicine and literature. A few years later, the two joined the Brotherhood of Hecate in London, a group active at the time in the realms of positivism and research into natural phenomena. However, the true and hidden pursuit of the Brotherhood was unholy research towards the creation of the ultimate human being. These depraved experiments led to the creation of mutant beasts and the spread of disease and chaos throughout London. And in the fateful year of 1666, Samuel Pepys, who foresaw the impending doom, set fire to the underground laboratory in the hope of wiping out every trace of the Brotherhood of Hecate and its evil research. In a matter of minutes, the fire spread throughout London, and the whole city was engulfed in flames. It seemed that all had perished into the ashes, save one. Now, Daniel Pepys, aware of his brother's suspicious acts, murders Samuel, and together with the gruesome records, disappears into the darkness of history. Ignatius, a priest in the Church of England and a specialist in mysticism, learns of a frightening increase in the number of missing clergy, as well as sightings of inexplicable monsters. Unable to obtain any facts or solid information, Ignatius one day receives an ancient and mysterious book from out of nowhere. Written on the cover of the tattered volume is Samuel Pepys and nothing else. In deciphering the contents, he learns of the mysterious Brotherhood of Hecate. Realizing the seriousness of what is before him, he quickly sends the book to his mentor in the United States, Professor Jean, and requests a detailed assessment. Professor Jean and his daughter Nadia begin their research based on this diary of Samuel Pepys. As fate would have it, however, Professor Jean is soon found murdered at his hotel. During his last moments, Jean has found the strength to leave a single message. He works alone, his hands defiling the bodies of the dead in his thirst for knowledge and power. His name is Adam Crowley, a man who was once respected in the field of science until fate led him along another path towards black magic. Now he is in possession of the mythical Lost Diary of Samuel Pepys, a volume that contains the detestable rituals of the demon-worshipping Brotherhood of Hecate. Soon, he will complete his work. Tonight, as the sun sets on London one last time, he will unleash his demonic brood onto the streets. And should no one stop him, this city will be consumed by a horde of nightmare creatures.
Yeah, fucking brilliant. Even Bloodborne took massive inspiration from the intro to this game. Just look at it and listen to it. It's grotty, it's eerie, it's dank and depressing. And this bit here? This is why I turned the game off in terror. I was about 10 or 11 when I saw this and I had nightmares from it for ages. This game achieved what every horror game should set out to do. To scare. And it did it in the first 60 seconds before the fucking game even started. Pure brilliance. After the intro, we're kicked to the main menu. This menu is different depending on console and region, but it's all basically the same idea. You get a choice between two characters. Ignatius Blackwood, a priest demon hunter with a fucking bow staff, and Nadia Franciscus, a gymnast and biology expert who also knows martial arts and is trained with various swords. Personally, I always pick Nadia for sentimental and personal reasons, but it's really up to the player's preference. The game style is not a clunky tank control game like Resident Evil, and is actually very fast paced. Monsters will attack you the minute the game begins, and you won't get much chance for a breather. It is worth noting, however, that so long as monsters are off screen completely, no matter how close, they freeze in their tracks and will not be able to attack you. Your main moves consist of kicks, weapon attacks, blocking and jumping, with some sidestepping thrown in to dodge monsters' retaliations. You can chain attack buttons together to perform combos, which, in some cases, can take down monsters very quick. In addition to this, you can also pick up power-ups or spells. These usually only have one use before they disappear, unless you've stocked up on them, say. But they will not work on bosses, except on this guy, who actually requires you to use them. Some of these power-ups are offensive, some defensive, but all of them are very important and should be used wisely. You can run from monsters, but I really advise against it. Running from a monster often leads into you bumping into more, and often you will end up being ripped to pieces when they catch up and start to surround you. But that being said, even if this wasn't the case, I would not recommend running from monsters anyway. You see that blue bar in the corner there? That's your adrenaline meter. It is constantly lowering the longer you are in a level, and if it reaches the bottom, you die anyway. The only way to replenish this is by killing the monsters. You see, the air is contaminated by the evil atmosphere being created by Crowley, so clearing out the monsters is the only way to clear the air a little. Let them run amok and you will suffocate like a whale on the moon. The N64 version does feature an option to turn this bar off, which is great for exploring, but ultimately it's like taking away a part of the experience and the desperation which adds to the horror. Completing a level requires you to find the location hinted at on the loading screens between each stage, but there are also many secrets hidden throughout. I personally would recommend exploring everything, making sure you keep your adrenaline bar in check as you do so. Often it will lead to secret items or power-ups and lives that will definitely help you out in the long run. Some secret areas may require a bit of a risk or a leap of faith, but more often than not, these do pay off. Just another reason why I love this game so much. There is always more to discover. It's very much like Doom in this way, even giving you a similar level complete screen, showing what items and secrets you may have missed, and this allows for so much replayability. Now, a lot of people like to compare Nightmare Creatures to Bloodborne, which is a newer game on the PS4, and I can sort of see where they're coming from totally, but come on man, it ain't nothing on the original Nightmare Creatures. Nightmare Creatures 1 has a very Bloodborne aesthetic, yeah, I understand that. But it's still got a better atmosphere. It's got a better vibe. It feels tense. And let me tell you this much. When you see a docker coming towards you, you will have a heart attack. You will have a heart attack and die. Everything in this game, from the sound design to the graphic to the atmosphere, the ambience, the music, the look, the feel, it's pure nightmare fuel. It's Nightmare Creatures. Nightmare Creatures, you know? It's the best thing ever made. As I said earlier, there are boss levels in which you have to fight a big, tougher monster. These often require special techniques to kill, such as Hose Manuel, which has you flipping switches back and forth while avoiding his butcher knives to trigger spikes to extend from the wall and impale him. Or the Snowman, which requires you to pick up dynamite to blow the churches into pieces and impaling with the shards of glass. The Sewer Snake is the first boss, which is a nice mix of technique and hand-to-hand combat in which you have to knock these pieces of wood onto its head before taking it on face to face. but the final boss is the tough one, requiring you to use all your martial arts mastery in an all-out, one-on-one battle to the death in which power-ups will never work. These boss levels are great and really do feel like a milestone once you have either outsmarted or beaten them. There are certain power-ups that last forever if you're lucky enough to find them. These require often huge risk takes or very intricate exploration to discover, and they come in the form of upgrades for your main weapon. For example, Nadia's sword becomes a sword with jagged teeth, or Ignatius's bow staff gets modified to have fucking axes on each end. These allow for more damage on the monsters, and in some cases, even dismemberment if used skillfully. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure that it proves useful in the final boss also, as you can find one just a little while before the big confrontation. If you are skilled and able to overpower the final boss, who it is heavily implied is Adam Crowley after drinking that wonky formula himself, you will decapitate him and the game will end. Or will it? As a kid, I was so scared of this game that, along with a few other important factors that I won't go into here, inspired me to study demonology in real life. I am an expert in that field, in part because of how scared this game made me of satanic cults and black magic. I'm not scared of these things nowadays, of course. They are so much a part of my life now that they're like family, just like this game is. Robots, on the other hand, fuck robots. I can't handle robots. But this game, I can handle this all day, because it's so fucking brilliant. And even though I've played through it about 6 billion times since 1998, let me just say I loved playing it again to get the footage for this video. This game has done more than hold up well. It's still better than any horror games around now. And I love some games that come out since, such as The Suffering and Deadly Premonition. But even then, I cannot put any horror game or series above this. Nightmare Creatures is still the greatest horror game series of all time, in my humble opinion, which is totally right and don't ever question it. Yes, nostalgia is a part of it, I can't pretend it isn't, but even without the nostalgia, this game has something that I just haven't seen in full since. As I said in my top 12 PlayStation horror games video, The Suffering on PS2 had a touch of the Nightmare Creatures 2 vibe, but it was still its own vibe as well. Nightmare Creatures on the PS1 are, for definite, the greatest horror games of all time. So yeah, if you haven't played Nightmare Creatures, I urge you to go and do that right now. Go out and buy it. Go out and buy it. Get it online. Get it in the shop. I don't care where you get it. Go out and get it. Did take a while for this to arrive. That's why this video's taken so long. I ordered this months ago. I've been waiting for it to arrive so I can make a video and include this in it. This is the N64 version. Now, the thing with this is, it's got a brilliant new introduction. There's no cutscenes because it's an N64 cartridge and you can't handle it. But what it has got on it is something really amazing. An actual in-game graphics introduction with all the monsters coming towards the screen and that. But it does have a backfire, I'm afraid. For some reason, and I don't know why, the sewers level has been taken out of this. There's no sewer level, which is a shame. But it doesn't matter, because the game is still brilliant. Get it, if you can. Thank you for watching the Video Game Cemetery. Your continued support is appreciated. Thank you, I need the support. My channel's tiny, on no one's fault but my own, because I'm a lazy fucker that doesn't make videos. So, thanks for watching, stick around, and see you next time. Now I know what you're thinking. I only just released that Nightmare Creatures video a few days ago. Shouldn't I be on like a year's break by now? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, the home to all things retro video games. And today, we're going to be taking a long trip back to 1988 to look at one of my all-time favourites, Rainbow Islands. Now, as you can see, this is the UK NES version, but I'm not going to be covering just this version today. I'm going to cover Rainbow Islands as a whole, as an idea, as a game in general, because to be fair, there are so many different versions of it on so many different consoles, it would be impossible to do a video for each particular version. So this is just going to be Rainbow Islands, the video, full stop. I'll be showing bits of footage from this PAL NES version, the NTSC NES version, the Game Boy Color version, the PlayStation, and basically whatever else I can get my hands on. You see, at the end of the day, every version of this game is technically the same. Same basic levels, same basic design, same boss sequences. It's not like Bubble Bobble, where, as I said in my Bubble Bobble 2 video, it has a different version for each system. In fact, they're completely different games for each one. This game is always, for the most part, the same. So, rather than do a video for each particular version, I'm going to make it an ultimate Rainbow Islands video for just Rainbow Islands in general. Now, when I first bought this version, as in this cartridge right here that I'm holding, I was with someone very special to me. And I think you know who you are. So, I dedicate this video to you, beautiful Princess Scarlet. So without further ado, let's get straight down to the video of Rainbow Islands. Now, as I said, Rainbow Islands has been released on a ton of different systems, from the Game Boy to the Amiga to the PlayStation, the NES, the Mega Drive, the Sega Saturn, arcades obviously, and so many more. It'd be impossible to do a video on all versions. But that's okay, because unlike with Bubble Bobble games, each Rainbow Islands game is actually near enough the same game, just running on different hardware. There is no Rainbow Islands 2 or anything like that. Just a very slightly different take on each version, but still, for the most part, exactly the same game within. Those of you who watched my Bubble Bobble Part 2 for the NES video I made roughly this time last year, will know that I mentioned how Rainbow Islands was said to be the sequel to the original Bubble Bobble. The Bubble Bobble timeline is wonky as fuck, and the original game seems to have at least 4 different sequels claiming to be Bubble Bobble 2. This being said, Rainbow Islands is considered by most to be the first true sequel. And that makes sense, since at the end of Bubble Bobble, Bub and Bob were restored to their human forms, and Rainbow Islands stars Bub and Bob as human boys. The story goes as follows. After saving their girlfriends from the evil sorcerer Drunk in Bubble Bobble, and being restored to human form, they discover that the magical Rainbow Islands are in danger from an evil being known as Dark Shadow. As it turns out, Dark Shadow just so happens to be the evil entity that was responsible for the entire events of the original Bubble Bobble. So this means it's on! Dark Shadow is an evil bubble dragon that has many malevolent abilities, but its favourite is turning human characters into bubble dragons. Hence why Bub and Bob were bubble dragons in the first Bubble Bobble. So, it's up to Bub and Bob to rescue Rainbow Islands from this evil bastard and restore peace. The gameplay for Rainbow Islands differs from Bubble Bobble in one main way. Instead of each level being a single map on a screen that has to be cleared of monsters to progress, Rainbow Islands instead consists of a large vertical level that you have to ascend, and if you wanted, you could avoid the monsters. I don't recommend you do that, as killing them earns you stronger attacks and speed, not to mention gems, which will be vital for getting the good ending and defeating Dark Shadow. But, potentially, you can just skip past enemies and try to make it to the top that way. You attack enemies with rainbows that Bub and Bob have the ability to cast at will. These rainbows can be used to trap enemies to prevent them from attacking you, to drop onto enemies to kill them, to directly hit enemies to kill them, and awesomely, they can also be used to climb onto to help you reach higher ground. The rainbows obviously don't stick around for too long before you need to cast more, but they can be upgraded by picking up potions dropped by vanquished foes. Some of these upgraded rainbows include double rainbows, triple rainbows, lightning fast double and triple rainbows, and rarely you might even find something really cool, like a fairy that will spin around you, killing any monsters that get in the way. Each defeated monster drops an item. These are mostly food, sometimes treasure and potions, and if you're very lucky, you might get a coloured gem. These are very, very important. You see, out of the 10 Rainbow Islands, only 7 of them are accessible, and these 7 contain a giant coloured gem each. In order to get this giant gem, you have to collect one of each 7 small gems in each of the 7 islands first. This is important because unless you do this, you will not be able to access the island that Dark Shadow inhabits, and therefore, you will not be able to defeat him. You also have to collect 2 mirrors, so you've really got your work cut out for you here. If you fail to do this, your game will end after the 7th island with the bad ending. When it comes to boss fights, they appear at the end of every 4 levels. This part of Rainbow Islands is a lot more like Bubble in structure, being set on a single screen and requiring you to figure out a strategy for killing the giant monster before he hits you. One hit from any monster, let alone a boss, results in death, so it's really important not to mess these up. Generally, the bosses are fairly simple once you learn how they move. But saying that, the vampire boss on Island 3, Monster Island, is so frustrated even for me at times. Nonetheless, with a bit of practice, generally they can be done. The game, as much as I love it, is not perfect. There is a very frustrating credit limit, obviously carried over from the arcades, which means you get a set number of tries to beat the game. And with a game this difficult, that can be quite a problem. If you're new to this game, you probably won't even make it to the first boss. This is because you can't always see what's above you. On top of this, you have a time limit on each level. If you get the dreaded "hurry" message appear on the screen with its screeching sirens of panic, then you tend to play worse, causing more untimely deaths because you're trying to rush to the top. If you don't rush, however, eventually you will drown, because water begins rising from the bottom of the screen and will kill you the moment it reaches halfway up. This water can, and will, also happen during boss fights, which is a fucking nightmare. If you have collected 7 small gems before each boss fight, once defeating the boss, you will be rewarded with a giant gem. Now, keep in mind, it's not always easy to get these small gems throughout the 4 levels before each boss, because they seem to appear randomly from kills you perform, and sometimes appear on ledges that take so long to get to that they vanish before you can pick them up. This can be a serious fucking pain in the neck. If you're not trying to get the true good ending, the game is still hard, but not quite as bad, thankfully. There are some fantastic Easter eggs, if you can call them that, in this game. Each island, as you progress through the game, begins to reveal them. For example, once you get far enough, you'll start to discover monsters and scenery in the levels from other great Taito games that are known to exist in the same universe as Rainbow Islands. My personal favourite was the Fairyland story, an old arcade game by Taito that starred 2 sister witches in a very Bubble styled game. There is a whole island dedicated to this game with monsters and graphics from the original source material. And this isn't even out of place either, because as I said, a lot of these games are from the same universe, meaning they coexist, and have even crossed over in many other games, such as Pop and Pop or Bubble Symphony for example, to name but a few. Graphics vary from port to port, but they mostly look the same-ish, and to be fair, if you look at any version of Rainbow Islands, you can immediately recognise it as Rainbow Islands. There's just no mistake in it. Moving on, let's talk about ports. I think one of the most popular ports of Rainbow Islands is the NES version. It seems to be the first result on Google, and it seems to be the one that everyone is playing on YouTube. And for good reason. It's very faithful to the arcade original, considering the limitations. Of course, if you live in the United States, you probably wouldn't agree because over in the USA, you all got a different version to us. The United States NTSC version was made by Taito, and the level design has been reworked for better compatibility for the NES. It also added extra story in between levels, which is nice, but not faithful to the original. Over here in the UK, our PAL NES version was made by Ocean, and it is near exactly the same as the arcade, except with NES hardware. The version I grew up with is the PlayStation version. This was a nice little collection which contained the original Bubble Bobble, Rainbow Islands, and an enhanced version of Rainbow Islands. This was the first one I owned, and so there is a nostalgia to it for me. The graphics are pretty much perfect in every sense, so if you're looking for a near perfect port of the arcade, look no further. The Game Boy Color version is an interesting specimen. It's pretty much just Rainbow Islands again, except it's trying to be a sequel of sorts. It begins with a story where the mayor of Rainbow Islands tells you that the monsters have come back and that you should stop them again. So essentially it's just the same game but with an added story that makes it seem like a new game. And with Bubble Bobble music on the levels instead of Rainbow Islands music. It's a very, very strange port and I'm not sure what to say about it. There are many other versions of this game. It runs on pretty much everything, so I can't go over them all. But other notable versions are Mega Drive and Master System. These are very good ports and definitely worth a look too. But at the end of the day, my personal favourite would have to be a toss-up between the PlayStation and the NES UK version. The music in some versions you'll notice is considerably different to others. This is because of a complaint saying that the music was too similar to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which, when you've been told about it, you can sort of hear. But I'll be honest, I never noticed that until I was told. Yeah, I'm a grown man playing Rainbow Islands. What, bruv? The best part about Rainbow Islands is its price. It is still going for reasonable prices, from around the £20 mark to about £60, depending on system and condition, which is not bad at all for such a great vintage game. If you remember my Bubble Bobble Part 2 video for NES, you'll know how much that one goes for, which is quite different to this one. Back when I was in high school, I'd say mid-high school, I used to do this thing where I wouldn't go to classes, but what I would do is I'd go to the libraries or the computer labs, and I'd look up how to do this. And I spent so many hours trying to learn how to play this just in my school time. Fantastic fucking game, and fantastic memories to go with it. Now, I said at the beginning that there is no Rainbow Islands 2, and I know someone out there is going to try and be smart and tell me that Parasol Stars is Rainbow Islands 2. But sorry, no. That's as much Rainbow Islands 2 as Rainbow Islands is Bubble Bobble 2. It's a sequel, yes, sure, but it's not Rainbow Islands. That game is based on the same characters fighting their enemies in a Bubble Bobble style game using a parasol. No rainbows in sight. So yes, it's a sequel, part of the original Bubble Bobble trilogy, but they are not continuations in style of gameplay or theme, only in story. Also, I highly recommend you check out the Bubble Bobble info pages and the Rainbow Islands info pages. I've been reading these since 2001 and they are still online, thank God. I'll link them down in the description below, check them out. They contain all kinds of tips and tricks on Bubble Bobble and Rainbow Islands. A must read. So all in all, I have nothing but praise to give to Rainbow Islands. This is a game that was part of my childhood, very important in the world of arcade classics and should definitely be revisited today. It's got charm, a bright atmosphere, and even if you're feeling depressed, this game has a gift of just brightening up the day. And I fucking love it. So yeah, if you haven't played Rainbow Islands, I highly recommend you play this classic platformer, which makes you feel like a child again. I would recommend, if you're going to play it, to play either this version, the PAL NES version. The USA NTSC version is alright, that's okay, it's a good option. The PS1 version, absolutely. The Sega Saturn version, absolutely. And maybe the Mega Drive, which is the Genesis for you Americans out there. Those ones I'd recommend. I would not recommend the PSP, the DS, definitely not the Xbox versions. I do also have this version. This is the PC version. So if you're a PC gamer that doesn't really do emulation, this version is probably the closest to the arcade or the PlayStation 1. So there's always this option if you're not an emulator fan. And that's it. Thank you for watching the Video Game Cemetery. I hope you enjoyed Rainbow Islands. I know I did. And I know I'm going to right now, because I'm going to carry on playing it. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and peace out. Welcome to episode 6 of the Video Game Cemetery. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, the resting place for all things retro video games. And occasionally, newer games for the current generation. And today's episode is a special episode dedicated to a game for the current generation. I am, of course, talking about Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon is a game by Inti Creates. You know, those guys that did a ton of work in the Mega Man series. And Bloodstained itself is led by the amazing Koji Igarashi after his departure from the Castlevania series, once Konami decided people were bored with Metroidvania-style games. Because Konami were clearly on drugs when they made this decision, Koji Igarashi knew they most likely made a stupid mistake, and so went off on his own, taking Michiru Yamane, the genius behind Castlevania, Symphony of the Night's amazing soundtrack, with him, to create Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon, and Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. And believe me, I'll get to that one soon enough. But the focus today is on the first Bloodstained game. Michiru Yamane and Ippo Yamada absolutely kill it on this soundtrack. The soundtrack for Bloodstained is fucking amazing. Curse of the Moon is what I would call the most perfect Castlevania game on the NES. Except it's Bloodstained and it's on the PS4. Don't believe me? Here, take a look at them side by side. Yeah, see that? Would you believe that there are 29 years between these two titles? They literally look like they came out at the same time. And you know what? It's the best thing they could ever have done. And yes, I do speak from a retro video game collector's perspective. But it's my perspective, and it's the only one I've got, so fuck you. But in all seriousness, games from that era, up to the PS2 era, are actual games to me. They look and feel like games. People love to talk about amazing modern realistic graphics, and yes, realism is nice,
but that doesn't feel like a game to me. It feels like an interactive movie. To me, a game is sprites, pixels and polygons. And when it comes to games like Castlevania, or in this case, Bloodstained, I feel this is the only way it should be done. As a huge Castlevania fan, and yes, I even like the modern 3D Lords of Shadow ones, I have been longing for a new Castlevania for bloody ages in the original style of the older games. I love the classic NES, SNES, Mega Drive and PlayStation side-scrolling 2D platformers, and I love the PlayStation, Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS side-scrolling 2D Metroidvania ones. These to me are true Castlevania. And since Castlevania doesn't do it anymore, all I can say is thank the Lord that Bloodstained came along to pick up the pieces. I've been feeding my hunger for new classic style Castlevania for quite a while with homebrew fan games and hacks of classic Castlevania, some of which are amazing, especially the Holy Relics, and I'll most likely cover some of these at some point. But Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon, is like the new classic Castlevania I've always been waiting for. And oh boy, did it deliver. So what is the story of this game? Well, it's based around a powerful demon hunter who goes by the name of Zangetsu. A lot of his character is shrouded in mystery, which is a good thing, but what we do know about him is that he was cursed by demons, and as a result, Zangetsu has a serious hatred for anything demon or demon related. His search for revenge leads him on a path to discover new allies, including an alchemist and 2 shardbinders. Shardbinders are humans who have demonic abilities but have not lost their humanity or control to them. And if you don't know what an alchemist is, I suggest you pop to your library and pick up a book on the subject, specifically John Dee. Or you could just Google it, since that's what you modern kids do nowadays. Zangetsu is reluctant to work with these 3 allies, at least at first, because he sees them as demon related, but he gives them the benefit of the doubt and lets them help him. However, whether or not he allies himself with them can change, and how well they gel can change, also changing the outcome of the game. Zangetsu's goal above all else in this game is to hunt down, confront and destroy the ancient demon Gremory. If Zangetsu chooses not to ally with the other characters, those 3 ally characters step in to save Zangetsu at the end of the game in the final battle, sacrificing themselves to save him. However, if he does ally with the other characters, he sacrifices himself to save them in the final battle. Both of these sound like pretty bad endings, but it's really how you take it. If you really want a perfect ending of sorts, the middle option of befriending and ignoring ally characters with a balance creates an ending in which all characters survive. But Zangetsu is still cursed by demons in this ending, so you could say he did it all for nothing. And there is more, which I'm not going to spoil. There is a ton of replay value due to the various different routes in the story. So yeah, story is, badass demon slayer seeks to kill the ancient demon Gremory to free himself of a demonic curse. That's the basic version. I'd also like to add that Bloodstained, plus the sequel, take a lot of real-life demonology and incorporate it into the story. It's heavily based on real-life alchemists and the Ars Goetia, probably better known as the Book of Solomon, and has many of the original 72 spirits of Solomon in the game as bosses and enemies. I love when games about demonic works are based on real occult practices. Fantastic research team behind it, that's all I can say. What can be said about the gameplay apart from the fact that it's just Castlevania? As said earlier, you begin the game as Zangetsu, a powerful demon slayer on a mission to destroy all demons he finds. He attacks with a sword. After defeating the first boss, you will be joined by Miriam. She is the first shardbinder you meet, and she attacks with a whip. A little later, you will be joined by Alfred the Alchemist, who attacks with a staff, and then later, Jebel the Vampire. Okay, so they don't officially classify him as a vampire, but look at him! He's clearly a vampire, and he even attacks enemies by letting 3 bats out of his cape in near enough the exact same fashion as Dracula and his fireballs in Castlevania. He's a vampire in my book, at least in this game, but also a shardbinder. You can switch between these characters on the fly, unless they get killed, then you continue with who you have left until you lose a life. Along with their standard attacks, they can collect potions and parchments by attacking lanterns, which gives sub-weapons. These can vary from daggers to grappling hooks to axes, and in Jebel's case, the ability to transform into a bat. Yeah, definitely a vampire. Personally, I find it easiest to play as Miriam. I'm not sure if that's because I've played as her the most, or because she basically plays exactly like the Belmonts in Castlevania. But I find her the smoothest experience. This being said, you'll never be able to complete the game if you stick with only one character anyway. You really need to switch between them when the time calls for it. For example, if you see a small narrow gap, Zangetsu and Alfred will be pretty useless here. But Miriam can slide underneath, or Jebel can use his bat form to fly underneath. Huge jumps you can't make? No problem, Jebel can fly across. You're best learning the movement of each character and their pros and cons in different situations. Along with potions and parchments, you can also pick up hearts. Unlike in Castlevania, hearts now replenish your health, and potions are the equivalent of the hearts in Castlevania. Most levels have an obvious path to follow. You can even see skeletons pointing to the direction you're supposed to go. But it also offers alternative paths, which are usually quite a bit more deadly, but reward you greatly for taking the risk and exploring. You'll usually find a difficult platforming challenge or a bastard of a monster that spams attacks with a lot of damage, but hey, you've got to give it a try, right? To aid you, like in Castlevania, you can also break certain walls to reveal health and power-ups too. Always worth stabbing or whipping a wall here and there to see what you can find. The graphics in this game are absolutely beautiful. They are, for the most part, 8-bit. That is, they look like they came straight from the NES, and in my book, this is a bloody good thing. When I was a kid, this kind of graphical achievement would have been considered groundbreaking, so this to me is how a game should look, as I said earlier. Obviously this is a design choice, and I'm glad they went the 2D sprite route rather than a 2.5D look like the sequel Ritual of the Night took. It has some fantastic parallax scrolling, as can be seen in many of the beautifully crafted levels, and the rain effects and moving train effects and so on all look absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. The bosses are especially amazing to look at. The third boss, Valafar, is absolutely amazing. He's made of gold coins and treasure, and attacking the piles of money he slides along the screen harm him, at the same time as doubling as a ladder for you to climb up and whip him in the face. And for a game using what is basically an NES style, the gold looks and feels exactly like what it's supposed to be. Gold. It feels like I'm in the Cave of fucking Wonders on this level, and every level has this attention to detail, making what is technically very simple graphics look very impressive and effective. You would be forgiven in thinking at first glance that this was a Castlevania game on the NES. And I know, once again, I'm repeating myself here, but this really is exactly what it's like. When it comes to Curse of the Moon, I have to say it's very, very difficult for me to find anything wrong with it. And believe me, I have tried. I've played through it quite a few times, and honestly, if I have to say it has anything wrong with it, it's that it leaves me wanting more. The game is a decent length, don't get me wrong. It's once again on par with Castlevania 3 on the NES, but there isn't enough games like this. And even Ritual of the Night, as brilliant as that one is still very different and certainly not an NES-style Castlevania game. Curse of the Moon really does seem to be a one-off, and that to me is a flaw. My other complaint would be its lack of support for the PSP system. The original PSP, that is, since it is compatible with the PS Vita. This may seem like a stupid complaint, but the truth is that the PSP is more than capable of running this game. And I'd like to have it in my pocket on my favourite portable system, the original PSP. But hey, these are only nitpicks, because in truth, I can't really find a real flaw with it. Curse of the Moon is the perfect PS4 game, along with its sequel. I guess you could say it can be frustrating at certain points too, especially when taking the alternate routes in the game. But that's kind of the point, so can that even be considered a flaw? Probably not. Fortunately, if you want to play Curse of the Moon, it's available on quite a few consoles. It's on the PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, PS Vita and PC, so you have a lot of options. It was originally released as a digital download only, much to my shock and horror and disgust, but thanks to the amazing and wonderful people at Limited Run Games, it is available as a physical game on the mentioned consoles, including the special edition versions. Personally, I grabbed the PS4 release to begin with, but since then I'm working on getting every physical copy that exists. Yes, even at the prices they go for. This game really is that good. I also bought it as a PS4 download so I don't have to unseal it. So whatever preference you have for a console, it's got you covered. So there really is no excuse. Unless you're like me and you prefer playing the original PSP to the PS Vita. Then you're fucked. So all in all, I think that Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is most definitely one of the top 10 PS4 titles of the current generation. If you love retro Castlevania games, or if you're more into the newer games of a similar style, such as Axiom Verge or Dead Cells and so forth, then you'll absolutely love Curse of the Moon. Fuck, even if you don't have a taste for these kinds of games, I would still recommend it, and I honestly can't recommend it enough, because it's fucking excellent. Like I said earlier, I love Castlevania, even the newer ones, but fuck me Leftways, I've wanted a classic Castlevania game forever, and Bloodstained delivers on every single level. And you know what? Konami, the owners of Castlevania, knew that they made a mistake by taking Castlevania in a new direction, because they haven't released anything new since the Lords of Shadow games, and they are constantly re-releasing the Castlevania classics, like Requiem on the PS4, and the Castlevania collection that includes all the NES, SNES, Game Boy and Mega Drive games. The only issue I have with these releases is, as great as they are, is that they are digital only, which fucking sucks. So they still haven't gotten back on track completely. But for the Castlevania fan of today, Bloodstained is the way to go, and I cannot emphasize that enough. So that's it, only a short video today. Just wanted to give this seriously beautiful game some love and respect. It seems to be overlooked a lot, I don't know why, so I wanted to give it some attention and bring some more love towards it, especially as a classic Castlevania fan, as if you couldn't already tell. Oh, P.S. one more thing, I'd like you all to show support to the Romford store Geeks to Gamers. This is the place to get your retro collectibles. It is a fantastic shop. I managed to get so many rare Japanese imports or just games that you just don't see anymore in there. They do consoles, games, they do figures, comics, they do everything you can think of for a collector. All the things that you love and that you want, you'll find most of it in this shop. And on top of that, they also do consoles that can play games from other regions. So I highly recommend you check them out. Geeks to Gamers in Romford. Thank you for watching the Video Game Cemetery. You know I'd really appreciate a like or a subscribe or a share. You ain't got to, no one's forcing you, but I would appreciate it, that's all. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace! Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, the home to all things retro video games. And today's episode is episode 7, at long last. This has been well overdue. Why is this episode taking so long? Well, to be fair, this game that I'm reviewing today takes some time to prepare for, because it's extremely difficult. I am, of course, talking about this game, Jersey Devil on the PS1. Oh yeah, we're doing this shit. Now before I start, I'd just like to say happy Halloween. This is my Halloween special. It wasn't gonna be, but considering how long it took, it's nearly Halloween now. And to be fair, this game is perfectly suited for Halloween, I feel. So, this is my Halloween special of the Video Game Cemetery, episode 7. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my wonderful, beautiful Princess Scarlet, who I think is watching this right now. Happy Halloween, gorgeous. Oh boy, Jersey Devil. Where the hell do I even begin? I picked up this game in the late 90s and I absolutely loved it and hated it all at the same time. Not because the game was bad, but the difficulty was absolutely astronomical. Keep in mind, this was in the days when I used to get frustrated with Crash Bandicoot's difficulty, and Jersey Devil was that, turned up to 11. The game was released here in the UK in 1997 by Ocean. You may remember them from my Rainbow Islands video. Ocean get a lot of shit, but honestly I really love their games. Jersey Devil is no exception. In the States it was released in '98 by Sony Computer Entertainment of America, and in Japan it was released by our dear friends at Konami in 1999. As you can probably see, here in the UK we got it first. And that means we got the earliest and hardest build of the game. In fact, it's drastically different to the others, but we'll get to that later. It was a PlayStation exclusive, and in my view has become an absolute classic, synonymous with stress. The story of Jersey Devil is nothing you haven't really already seen before, to be honest, though it does present it with such charm that it can easily be forgiven. You play as Jersey Devil, a mythical superhero-like being that was captured as a baby by the evil Dr. Narf. And yes, Narf is a reference to the Pinky and the Brain cartoons, well done for noticing that. And Narf was planning on experimenting and dissecting the baby devil to study him. However, Jersey Devil is able to wreck the entire science lab and escape via a massive nitrogen explosion, and the baby devil lands in the town of Jersey, where he remained. As the years went by, he was forgotten about, and one day, Jersey is infested with mutants and vegetable monsters. They chase people about, causing chaos, and that's when we discover that Jersey Devil, now fully grown, is watching from the rooftops. Narf is up to no good again, and Jersey Devil remembers his traumatic childhood. He remembers Narf. And now, he's going to put a stop to all of this chaos he has brought to his hometown. Narf will remember the name of Jersey Devil. So yeah, like I said, the story isn't much to write home about, but I am serious about its charm, and that Batman joke was not without meaning either. This game has a very strong Batman vibe to it. Now I'm going to give a demonstration of how I believe Jersey Devil came to be. So the game company had Crash Bandicoot, they had Spyro the Dragon, and they were watching a lot of Saturday morning cartoons at the time. So one day they were sitting there and they thought, Crash, Spyro, smack them together, Jersey Devil. Yeah. The gameplay in Jersey Devil is, Crash Bandicoot mixed with Spyro the Dragon. It really is. You've got this horned purple character that has wings and can use them to glide. He smashes boxes open and he attacks with a spin. He can also punch, but you won't be using that half as much as the spin attack. The objective is to traverse the levels and collect emblems with letters on them to spell out Narf, K-N-A-R-N-F, which will allow you to open doors and progress through the game. Sometimes these letters are hidden in boxes, sometimes they fall from enemies, and other times they just seem to fall from the sky. You can occasionally see them just floating there too, so there is variation to collecting these. Each level, not including the hub worlds, are filled with death pits and doom, and more often than not you will be falling down these. Now, in the USA and Japanese versions, there is a little extra feature. Hostages. Narf has taken hostages and Jersey Devil has to find them and set them free. Here in the UK, however, they don't exist, so they're nothing to be worrying about. I mean, we have enough problems to deal with in the UK version than to worry about rescuing random people who manage to get themselves trapped in stupid places. The platforming in this game is pretty clunky, and the gliding doesn't always work the way it should. As I said, there are tons of pitfalls in this game, and you will find yourself falling through them way too many times. If I'm trying to jump to a distant platform, and it's only out of reach by micropixel, my glide will have me clip right through the platform and fall down to my death. This doesn't happen all the time, but it still happens a little too often. You have to be extremely precise with each jump most of the time. The enemies can be annoying as hell also. As early as level 1, you will find these mosquito enemies hovering right between platforms over deadly death pits. You have to jump and spin attack them as you jump across, then go into a glide, all while being precise with your timing and judgment of distance. You can sometimes hit them before you make the jump, but you need to be right near the edge of the platform and again, be precise. If you get hit by an enemy, it also knocks you backwards, and on a game where most levels are tiny little platforms, this will often result in you flying back off the ledge and once again, splat at the bottom of the pit. I think maybe the two biggest problems in this game that contribute to its difficulty are the camera and the amazing lack of checkpoints and save points. If you're in the USA or Japan, checkpoints and save points aren't really an issue, as you guys got about 50% more of these than we did in the UK. But the camera is a constant issue, whatever region you're in. It seems you're always fighting against the camera, and you're often in ridiculously tight camera angles, or the camera gets stuck on the walls. And adding to this, if you're on a tiny platform, Jersey Devil feels the need to leap off the edge if he's too close. Yes, he literally jumps down the pits of death by choice. I think this could have been fixed by having him grab the edge if he slips off, instead of him just willing to commit suicide. I guess even Jersey Devil realises how hopeless this task is. At the end of certain parts of the levels, you will have a boss to contend with. These are probably the least difficult parts of the game, if you can believe that. Once you master the pattern of the boss, they become fairly simple to deal with. Once that boss is beaten, a new area in the hub world will open up, allowing you to proceed further. The main collectible in Jersey Devil is pumpkins, and collecting 100 will give you an extra life. You can also find extra lives in the form of purple devil tails, if you're willing to risk your lives to obtain that one extra, which most of the time, I'll be honest, really isn't worth it. Now make no mistake, I am a huge Jersey Devil fan, but god damn it, I tore so much of my hair out over this fucking game. This game is frustration to a T, and it is so difficult. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is literally considered one of the hardest 3D platformers of all time. And part of the reason, not all, but part of the reason why I've taken so long to prepare this damn video is because of how fucking hard this game is. I'm not kidding you. Now, for you Americans out there watching this video, if you're watching this thinking, yeah, you know what, he's right, Jersey Devil really is a hard game. Well, I've got to tell you this, but our version's harder than yours. Here in the UK, we have about 50% less checkpoints, about 35% more gaps to fall down and die on, maybe 20% harder platforming, and it is just a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare. Graphically, I think the game looks really impressive for its time. Again, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon and has a Batman aesthetic to it. There are a few graphical differences between the UK version to the USA and Japan versions, however. Here in the UK, the pumpkins you collect all have faces on them. Perfect for Halloween, especially since this is my Halloween special for the Video Game Cemetery. However, these faces are removed entirely from the USA and Japan versions. I really have no idea why. Other differences include cutscenes being between levels being absent from the UK version, NAF tokens being different in appearance, and Jersey Devil having no face animation in the UK version. There are titles for levels on the loading screens in the USA and Japan versions, and a bunch of other graphical changes. But whichever version you go for, the graphics are really nice. Nothing really feels ugly or unpleasant, though the hub worlds can look a little bit plain at times. The game doesn't have the best draw distance in the world, but for the type of game it is, I feel it works in its favour. A lot of the levels are meant to be dark and cartoon gothic, and since they're all full of death drops, I think it really adds to its feel. Occasionally there will be breaks in the graphics because hey, this is the PS1, so some clipping is bound to happen, but it never really bothered me when playing. Only when I fell through the graphics to my death did it really piss me off. Now we're getting to the very best part of this game. Its soundtrack. Oh my fucking god, this soundtrack is amazing. And unlike any other platformer out there. Most games of the PS1 era that were focused on the platforming mascots of the time had happy, jolly, bouncy music to play to. Just listen to Crash Bandicoot. And listen to Spyro. See? But not Jersey Devil. Remember I said numerous times that this game had a Batman aesthetic? Yeah, well, this is what Jersey Devil's music sounds like. Ooh, gives you chills, don't it? The amazing soundtrack was by Gilles Leville, and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but you are a musical genius. The rest of the sounds in the game are fairly generic, with cartoony bangs and pops and swishes, but in no way are they bad. Honestly though, just hearing the soundtrack alone would sell me on this game if I'd never played it before. It sounds like a brooding, gothic vampire story, despite being based around a cartoon cryptid in a Spyro-coloured Batman suit. If you haven't heard the soundtrack in full, I strongly advise you to go find a copy and just listen to it. It is incredible. Looking back at it now, Jersey Devil was not without its flaws, and I would have done a section for flaws alone, but I've already done a pretty good job covering that already throughout the video, so I won't do it again. But even with its flaws, Jersey Devil is a very underrated gem. He fell into obscurity pretty much immediately, and I think, in this era of classic PlayStation games getting the HD remake treatment, Jersey Devil is one that should definitely be considered, along with Gex and Croc, though I somehow doubt this will ever happen. Jersey Devil is for the hardcore platform gamer, not for casual gamers by any stretch of the imagination. I still haven't beaten it. Over 20 years, and I cannot get past the bloody cemetery level. So I most definitely don't claim to be an expert at it. But I do love and appreciate it, and I think it has more than earned its spot on the shelves of the video game cemetery forever. If you want to play it yourself, I'd recommend starting with the USA or Japan versions. They are drastically easier than the UK one, so maybe start with those, then move on to our UK version. Not to say the USA or Japan versions are easy, they're not. They're still hard as nails, but they're hard as clean nails, not rusty diseased ones like here in the UK. And with that said, I would say that yes, Jersey Devil is worth playing. So if you're a Crash or Spyro fan, or a platformer fan in general that somehow missed this one, you can go ahead and check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And that's it. That was Jersey Devil, a game that I'm pretty certain has given people loads of aneurysms. I don't recommend you try and beat it, but I do recommend you play it. It is a good game, regardless of how difficult it is. I hope you enjoyed the episode of Jersey Devil. If you'd like to leave a like and subscribe, it is very, very appreciated and very, very welcome, but you are not in any way forced to do that. Just you watching the video is support enough for me. Thank you. But if you do want to, it does help the channel, so go ahead and do that if you like. I'd just like to take this chance to say visit this website down here, Geeks the Gamers. See it down there? Visit there, you can get some great retro collectibles. I get a lot of my stuff from here. And I also go to the store because you get even better stuff if you actually visit the store. It's like a treasure trove of retro games and comic books and leads and consoles and chips and whatever. It's heaven. Visit it, please. Thank you for watching the Video Game Cemetery, and I will see you all next time. Peace. Now that the Jersey Devil video has been done, I wonder what game I'll be working on next. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery episode 8. And today we're going to be doing an episode on a favourite classic of mine for the original Nintendo Game Boy. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan. Now, alongside the original Tetris, Spud's Adventure, and Pac-Man on the Game Boy, this was one of my original Game Boy titles, the first ones I ever owned. And let me just say, as a Turtles fan, as a child, I fucking loved this game so much. Fall of the Foot Clan is the first in a trilogy of Turtles video games released on the original Nintendo Game Boy. The first 3 games all have similarities to each other, with the exception of the third being a more Metroidvania style game. This one is short and sweet, containing only 5 levels, but even so, to a newcomer, it's a decent challenge. It is filled with secret areas and bonus minigames, and it rewards dedication. It was published in 1990 by Konami in Japan, and 1991 in the EU, back when Konami was still a great company and releasing amazing games like Castlevania. But in North America, it was published by Ultra Games in 1990. It was released in Japan, North America and UK, and its box art was taken from the cover of the Archie Comics adaptation of the first Ninja Turtles movie, which was also an absolute classic.
The story of Fall of the Foot Clan is pretty much the same as 90% of every other Ninja Turtles project ever. April O'Neil has been kidnapped and it's up to the Ninja Turtles to track her down and save her. The story isn't anything special, as you can tell, but it doesn't really matter in this case, especially since this is the first in the original Game Boy trilogy. For the most part, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. That is, you walk from left to right, mashing the attack buttons to kill attacking enemies. At the beginning you get a choice of which of the 4 turtles you choose to play as. You can pick any of them to use, but if you die with that turtle he will become captured, and you'll no longer be able to use him in the rest of the game. Essentially, you could simply say that each turtle equals 1 life, so you get 4 lives to beat the game in total. There's a fair variety of enemies, and even the attacks have some different options, as surprising as that may seem. Most of the time you'll be attacking with your turtle's signature weapons, but if you crouch and attack, you can throw shurikens or ninja stars and attack from a distance. This is handy if you see enemies up ahead but don't have a lot of health. Equally, if you jump and attack, your turtle will do a flying kick. This is a great way to deal with enemies jumping at you as you jump across deadly death pits, and also the flying enemies. I personally always take the most pleasure in seeing an enemy jump at me as I jump over a death pit, only for that enemy to miss me and fall down the pit himself and explode at the bottom. It's like they're complete idiots and I love it. There are 5 levels in total. These are the city and the sewers under the city, a factory, a convoy, or moving cars that you have to jump from, similar to Shinobi on the Game Gear, the mountain caverns, and finally the Technodrome. Each of these levels has a boss fight at the end, and they're all fairly straightforward, but I think that Shredder, despite not being the final boss, is probably the biggest hassle of them all. Once you've beaten Krang at the end, the Turtles rescue April and the game is over. Or is it? Yes, it is. And to be fair, this game is kinda short, and if you're good at it, you can probably beat it in less than half hour. If you're new to it though, you should be occupied for quite a while. It does offer a decent challenge to newcomers. Health is restored in the form of pizza. Either a single slice for a small health restore, or an entire pizza for a full health restore. Also, hidden throughout almost every level are several bonus areas that are completely hidden. They can be found by breaking open barrels, jumping into stupid places that look like death traps or dead ends, and so on. These warp you to one of 3 bonus games, either a guess the number game, shoot the target game, or leave the right ninja star remaining game. Winning at any of these will completely replenish your current turtle's health, which can be helpful if no pizza is around and you're nearly dead. The graphics and sprite art are something I've always really loved about Fall of the Foot Clan. While modern kids today may look at this black and white, low-res screen and think it looks crappy, the art in this game is actually really amazing, especially for its time. It has fairly large, clear graphics, and the turtles look like what they're supposed to be. The foot soldiers are pretty spot on too. Naturally, the turtles are all the same with the exception of their weapon, which attaches at the wrist of each turtle. But even as each turtle walks, they swing or spin their weapons uniquely for each of them. This is nice attention to detail. The stages all look really nice too. The convoy level is especially impressive, and nothing feels or looks much cooler than reflecting an enemy's projectile with a tiny ninja star, even if that projectile appears to be a bunch of bricks. Do these graphics still hold up? Hell yes they do! And although they may be black and white, it really doesn't matter. The game looks fantastic in monochrome, and it has been designed with that in mind, so nothing looks messy, so to speak. The soundtrack on this game is the bomb. A lot of the time, you'll be hearing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme music from the original animated TV show. But other levels have original unique music that has been made with such love,
you could easily listen to it on its own and enjoy it. The 8-bit instruments have been picked with precision, making sure not to have sounds playing together that clash or make it hurt the ears. Also, the music is fluid, meaning that sound effects of enemies being hit or weapons being swung doesn't really damage the music track. A lot of Game Boy games cannot handle sound effects and music together, making a patchy, noisy mess, but this doesn't do that. Even the sound of jumping in the water sounds perfect. Definitely well made sounds and music make this a winner yet again. Obviously, this game is only available on the original Nintendo Game Boy. Unless you're into modding and bootlegging, then you can play it on pretty much anything. But it is legally only on the original black and white Game Boy system. It's not very common, but it's not very rare either. It's actually not all that expensive either, unlike its 2 sequels, and I really don't know why, so don't ask. So, if you have an original Game Boy and want to own it for real and play it on official hardware, well, you can, for a reasonable price. So go out and do that. Also worth noting that this game cart actually can be played on the earliest models of the PS1, using an unofficial adapter that came out back in the day. It's also the only Game Boy game that seems to work using it. Just some strange but true trivia there. Overall, I have only positive things to say about Fall of the Foot Clan. Of course, it is a bit short, but for its time, it was large enough for those who have never played it before. And it can be quite a challenge. When I first got it as a kid, it took me ages to beat it. Hell, even my mother was able to beat it before me. So I think that yeah, it's pretty much just right for the first in the series of Game Boy Turtles games. The graphics are nice, the music and sounds are sweet and pretty much spot on, and the gameplay is very smooth and everything is very fluid, as I stated earlier. One thing it does lack, however, is a lot of replay value. There are no collectibles, there's nothing to unlock and nothing you can do differently really on a second playthrough. But other than that, it does what it's supposed to do. It's a solid, short but sweet beat 'em up about the Ninja Turtles. What more do you really need? I would definitely recommend picking this up if you haven't already. It is, after all, my favourite Ninja Turtle game of all time. Okay, it's a little short. It's only got 5 levels, and once you've mastered them, you can fly through it in about 20 minutes. But as a child, I wasn't an expert, so as I was playing through it, it was difficult, and I actually couldn't beat it at first. Things changed. So yeah, that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan on the original Game Boy, the first of the original Game Boy trilogy. And it's still, in my view, the best of the 3. Honestly, it really is. Thank you so much for watching episode 8 of the Video Game Cemetery. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the support. I have another video coming later this month, and then I'm going to have my final episode of Series 1 in December, so you could call that maybe my Christmas episode, if you want to call it that. It's not going to be Christmas themed at all, but you can call it that. Please leave a like, comment or subscribe, or even share. If you can just do a share for me, it's well appreciated. You're not forced to do it, you don't have to do anything, just watching it was respect enough, and thank you. But if you do, it does help my channel, and I appreciate that so much. That's all for today for the Video Game Cemetery, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Video Game Cemetery, episode 9. Just barely making it to the end of November, as promised. And today we're going to be looking at one of my all-time favourite Sega video games, released both for the Sega Game Gear and for the Sega Master System. Psychic World. Now, Psychic World on the Game Gear is considerably different to Psychic World on the Master System. Both are equally awesome, but this one I find a little bit easier. And also the level layouts are considerably different. They also use completely different graphics for some reason. Most Master System games used to use the same graphics as the Game Gear versions, except on a wider scale, like you could see more of the screen. But not in this case. Very, very unique specimen. Psychic World is a game that punishes its player at every chance it gets. Saying this game is hard is kind of an understatement. It was released in 1991 on the Sega Game Gear by Hertz, and the Sega Master System by Sanritsu, and it was of course published by Sega. The two different developers may have had something to do with how different both versions are. As I said previously, it was very rare for a Master System version to differ a lot from the Game Gear, as usually a version on one was identical with the exception of having less screen crunch on the Master System ports. Psychic World was one of these exceptions, but I'll go into this more later. It is worth mentioning, however, that neither the Game Gear nor the Master System versions are the original. No, in fact, the original was released many years before, in 1988, for the MSX2 under the name Psycho World, and was Japan exclusive. This makes the Master System and Game Gear versions ports of the MSX2 version, so to speak. Set in the year 19XX, Psychic World focuses on Lucia, a girl with psychic powers, and her twin sister Cecile, who, alongside Dr. Navik, are studying the mystic abilities of ESP, or extrasensory perception. Anyway, one day, Lucia was getting ready to head to the lab for work when an explosion took place at the lab before her arrival. Lucia finally made it there, but her sister Cecile had vanished. Dr. Navik, however, was unharmed, and explains to Lucia that he was experimenting on monsters that broke free and took Cecile with them. Dr. Navik gives Lucia an ESP booster to enhance her psychic powers, allowing her to attack enemies with them, before she follows the monster's trail in an attempt to save her sister. Considering the age of the game, I'm going to explain a plot twist in this game and not consider it a spoiler. Dr. Navik is an alien. I'm not going to say any more on it, but I'm giving you that much. Psychic World is designed in a very specific way. It punishes the player for both hesitation and for being too quick, which can be a problem when trying to find the perfect middle ground. For those who haven't experienced the game personally, you can to some extent compare it to Mega Man. Certain parts of this game have monster patterns that are designed for fast movement, meaning if you encounter a bouncing enemy, for example, then stopping to fight it might end in death, whereas keeping on running full speed will most likely see you fly underneath them all unharmed mid-bounce. Hesitation is the punishment here, whereas fast movement pays off. However, somewhere like the planes on the first level, running at full speed will often send you flying into an enemy, taking chunks of your life down. Hesitation certainly would have paid off in this situation, and speed was the downfall. So it's really about knowing what fits what situation better. You begin the game with the ability to shoot psychic power towards your enemies. This will kill some enemies right out, but others later are a bit tougher and will require you to level up the ability. You'll also gain other magical attacks, such as being able to shoot fire attacks and ice attacks. These will be important as some enemies are ice-based or fire-based, and using the right one at the right time is vital. The ice will be especially important to learn because at certain times, you'll find giant chasms with no platforms that require you to make them yourself using your ice block ESP. Equally, fire attacks will melt those blocks if they hit them, so you really have to be careful when attacking ice enemies while standing on ice blocks, but using fire attacks. You can also use a temporary invincibility power, which can be very, very useful indeed, especially during boss fights. Lucia also has the ability to restart a level as many times as she wants. I'm not entirely sure the point of it, and I only ever use it when I select it by mistake, mostly, but it is a feature. The game is of course a 2D platformer in the same style as Mega Man. You can climb ladders and jump over spikes, etc., and at the end of each level is a boss fight. These are usually very tough, though I do find they are a lot easier on the Master System version, as they have different patterns and different techniques required to defeat them and are considerably different in general. As a kid, I only had the Game Gear version, and it was a nightmare getting anywhere. In that game I used to die repeatedly. Right here, constantly killed by this flower. Killed by a flower. You can't get more pathetic than that. But in truth, this is still a difficult part to do even now. This is definitely a part where that invincibility power comes into play. The Master System version though is considerably easier, as the layout is different and you have more space to back up and prepare your attack. It's just generally easier here. But that's not to say the Master System version is easy. Oh no, just slightly easier. This game, on whichever system you choose to play it on, takes some serious strategy and skill to get anywhere in at all. The graphics and art for Psychic World are pretty great, to be honest. Again, everything looks very much Mega Man-ish with its own charm. But the interesting thing here is how different the game looks between the Game Gear and the Master System. As I said earlier, the differences may be due to the fact that both versions were made by different companies, and that most likely is the case. The Game Gear version, firstly, suffers a bit of a screen crunch, which is to be expected in a handheld port of the time. It doesn't really affect the game much, though it does make certain parts in particular a little more difficult. That fucking flower comes to mind. Other than that, the sprites look very similar to the Master System, with the exception of everything being scaled down and Lucia wearing purple instead of pink. The Master System version has a more red touch to its browns, and other colours also have a similar saturation. That kind of thing. Also, certain monsters, again that flower comes to mind. Do you think I might be traumatised by it? Certain monsters have completely different sprites, but all in all, both versions do look really nice and feel really nice to play. I wouldn't put one as better than the other, is basically what I'm saying here. The music in Psychic World is pretty great. I always remember the music from the first level, even when I haven't played it for ages. During high school, back 20 years ago or so, I would find myself humming it for no apparent reason, and it would just pop into my head randomly. All the music in the game is of a similar nature, being catchy and memorable, and the 8-bit instruments pull it off really well. The sound effects are simple, yet they portray what they're trying to really well also. The hissing sound of the ESP attacks are nice. They remind me of someone spraying perfume or a bottle of flash in the sink. And the sound of getting hit is like a vibrating buzz, which makes you feel like you're being damaged. Again, the sounds are simple, the music is simple, but it does the job, and I personally really like all of these things. Now, there are certainly flaws in this game. For starters, I think they may have just slightly made this game a little too hard. When I first got the Game Gear one, I was only 11 or 12 max, and I couldn't get anywhere whatsoever. I still loved it up until that flower point, but getting beyond that point was a dream that would remain that way until I reached my 30s. That is not an exaggeration. Also, to switch abilities in this game, you have to first crouch and then press the B button. This pauses danger, so that's okay, but it's a bit of a fiddly setup. Would have been much easier to just use start or select. Finally, it seems that due to how quick health drops, it can be impossible to recover from a fuck up. If you fall into a lava pit, say, massive chunks of your health are lost, and then completing the level becomes a hopeless task. This is of course far worse in the Game Gear version, but if you can deal with these things, or you like your games tough, then this shouldn't be considered a flaw, I guess. The game is available on the Sega Game Gear, the Sega Master System, and of course the original version is available on the MSX2 home computer. If you want to play it legit, as in without using ROMs or bootlegs etc., I would recommend trying the Master System version first, as it has a larger screen and a slightly less punishing difficulty. It is probably the best place to start, and as far as prices go, it's also very cheap. Even the Game Gear version is incredibly cheap, so if you want to buy both, go ahead. I did, but I'm completely insane, so you don't have to be like me. I'd like to suggest a recommendation for the MSX2 version, but I've never seen one for sale anywhere, and not many people have MSX2s anymore. But hey, if you have one and know where to get it, go for it. Just remember, it's called Psycho World on that version, not Psychic World. So all in all, you have 3 legit different ways to experience this game. And although I'd recommend the Master System first, any of these are a great option. My personal favourite is the Game Gear, mostly due to nostalgia. But like I said, they are all great options. If I was to sum up Psychic World in 1 or 2 words, I'd probably describe it as good but difficult. I do love the game, I think it's absolutely insane, which is definitely my cup of tea, but it's not really suited for the casual gamer. Mega Man experts probably have a better chance of surviving this ordeal, but even then I can't promise that, as I'm not a Mega Man expert myself. Would I recommend it? Yes, definitely. Is it a good game? Yes, definitely. Is it beatable? Yes, by a handful of people. Mind you, practice does make perfect, so who knows? You might find it a complete walk in the park. I doubt it, but it is possible, I guess. Yeah, the game is great. Should definitely get some more attention in any of its forms, but it is extremely tough. And if you can love it for what it is, like me, then you'll be happy you purchased it. I really do believe it to be an underrated game, and I think despite difficulty and a few flaws here and there, it most definitely earns its place on the shelves of the video game cemetery. And that was Psychic World on the Sega Game Gear and the Sega Master System, so you got kind of a 2-in-1 with this episode. As I said at the beginning of the video, I just barely made it in for the end of November with this video. I did promise another one this month, and here it is. Just cutting it fine, but I made it. Please leave a like or subscribe or a comment. Anything like that would help me a lot. It does help the channel, but in no way are you forced to do it. If you don't feel like you want to do it, then don't do it. No one's making you. Just watching my videos, supporting up, like I always say. Next month will be my final episode of Series 1, so please stick around and I hope you'll be there to watch it. It's not going to be Christmas themed, as I said in my last video, but it is going to be my Christmas episode-ish. So I hope you stick around and I hope you look forward to it, because it's going to be a unique one. Thank you so much for watching the Video Game Cemetery, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final episode of the Video Game Cemetery Series 1. It only took us 3 years to get here. And today we'll be looking at a game I was planning to look at starting from episode 3 of this series. And we're finally getting to it now. Chameleon Twist on the Nintendo 64. Okay, so let's get down to business. Chameleon Twist is a game exclusive to the Nintendo 64. It was released in 1997 by Sunsoft, but developed by Japan System Supply.
It was a platformer and was a very unusual game, definitely unique and unlike any other platformer of its time, and this worked in its favour at the same time as working against it. But I'll go over that a little bit later. It was popular enough to earn itself a sequel, however, Chameleon Twist 2, but that's for another video. Now this is going to be a little difficult to explain, because as far as story goes, Chameleon Twist doesn't really have much of one. That is, a lot of the game's plot isn't really explained in depth, and we are mostly left wondering what the hell is going on. But this is fine, and it actually works in favour of the quirky, psychedelic theme of the game. The one thing we can say about Chameleon Twist's story is that it stars a blue chameleon named Davy and his friends, Jack, Fred and Linda. Each of them has their own colour, differentiating them from each other. One day, the chameleon sees a white rabbit, ripped straight from Alice in Wonderland, dashing past him exclaiming, I'm late, before jumping into a psychedelic whirlpool in a pot that looks like a vortex to another world. Much like in Alice in Wonderland, the chameleon becomes curious about the rabbit and decides to follow it into the strange vortex, only to find himself in another world and discover that he is no longer in the shape of a chameleon anymore, but has taken on an anthropomorphic, humanoid form. That is the story. From there on out, it's mostly just strange, seemingly random level exploration as he tries to find a way back out again and return home, and back to his true chameleon form. Now I said earlier on that this game was a platformer, and it is, but I also said it was very unique and unlike any other at the time. This is also very true as the gameplay isn't as simple as just running, jumping and avoiding pit drops. This game has a quirk which seems to be, for the most part, exclusive to Chameleon Twist. Since you are playing as a chameleon, you can utilise your tongue in a manner of different ways. It can be a weapon, it can be a bridge, a ladder or a rope. When I first heard about Chameleon Twist, I was partly expecting something similar to Gex, since in that game, the tongue is used to grab onto the edges of ledges and eat flies for health. But Chameleon Twist is actually nothing like Gex at all, honestly. And if you don't learn to use the tongue abilities correctly, then you will never ever progress in this game. Let's say you reach a part of the game where there's a giant pitfall but you cannot jump across it because it's too wide. Well, then you better utilise the tongue ability here, because more often than not, you'll see a small wooden pole across the gap which you can use to help you pass. The chameleon will stretch his tongue towards it, grab on and pull you across. That might sound simple, but it's not. Latching onto things in this way can take patience, because you have to be facing the pole just right or it won't connect. Also, you can move the controls to bend the tongue in different directions, which can help sometimes to line it up better, but it's very hit and miss. And this is not always an option for crossing gaps either. In some instances, you'll have to use both the A and B buttons together in such a way that you can spin around the pole to reach other areas that you cannot reach by a simple tongue grabbing to the other side. Other tongue abilities include sticking it to the floor to push yourself upwards so you can leap to higher areas, often referred to as a tongue vault. This also takes some getting used to. As I said, this is a unique game that requires some skill to master. You can also use the tongue to eat enemies, store them in the chameleon's mouth, and spit them out at other enemies to kill them. This is especially important in some boss fights, as it can sometimes be your only hope of beating them. In some cases, you'll need to utilise the tongue twirl ability to trip the bosses up before spitting enemies at them to harm them. This takes time, practice and patience to master. As I said, you have to learn to utilise the tongue ability efficiently, because even certain enemies and obstacles in the game require you to use the enemies as bullets to progress further. Other than that, the rest of the game is very much like a regular platformer. You jump across platforms, fight enemies and collect items. In this case, hearts for health and crowns as the main collectible. These are usually in awkward places or hidden behind breakable items. So if you like a good collectathon like me, this offers a little something extra other than just
beating the levels. Actually, the graphics in Chameleon Twist, from what I've heard, get a lot of hate. I don't really understand why. For a 1997 platformer, I think they're pretty nice, and it uses some very clever trickery for saving on space and memory. For example, the main characters, the chameleons, are polygonal 3D models which, considering what they are and what time it came out, are pretty decent. They do what they're supposed to, and they look fine in my opinion. The White Rabbit and bosses of the game are the same in that sense. They might not be perfect or groundbreaking, but they do the job and they do it well enough. However, most enemies in the game are not 3D models at all. They are sprites. And while most people would probably find this messy, mismatched and out of place, I have to disagree. The sprites are nicely made, and to be honest, unless you really know the ins and outs of games and how a sprite is different from a model, which I know a lot of people do these days, then you might not actually notice it. Hell, I've read reviews on this game in the past that actually mistakenly call the sprite enemies low polygon models. The textures can be a little bland at times, sure, but they still do the job they're trying to do. You can tell when you're in a cave or in the forest, and I really ain't bothered by the complaints that most people have about that. All in all, considering it was a 1997 3D platformer, it has held up well enough, in my view. Most people say the music in this game is annoying. I don't think it is. It's a typical platformer soundtrack, but with a catchiness that I think personally adds to its character. Certain sound effects can be a little overkill maybe, like the sounds of the tongue extending being maybe slightly louder than I'd expect, or the explosions being a little bit harsh. Okay, so the sound in general can be a little over the top, but does it spoil the game for me in any way? No. Does it lose the game points on its overall quality? No. It's just something you either have to get used to or turn the TV down. It's that simple. Plus, the music is something I actually really like, especially some of the boss music. It's got that late 90s, early 3D platform game feel that I've always loved, so yeah, no complaints here from me. A lot of the general sound effects may come across as stock and basic, but like I said about the graphics, if it does its job, and it does it well, then what's the problem? The sound effects are fine. Nothing to write home about, but perfectly fine. Now, if you want to play Chameleon Twist, I'm afraid you're limited to only one option, and that is to grab the original Nintendo 64 cartridge and play it on your N64. It hasn't been re-released in any other form to my knowledge, and unless you're into bootlegging, emulating, or other forms of non-legit gaming, then your only option really is the original Nintendo 64 release. But to be honest, that's probably the best way to play it anyway, considering its gameplay style is very much designed for that kind of controller. It's usually pretty reasonably priced as well, so it won't break the bank to buy a real, proper physical copy of the game the way it should be played. This game is tough. If you don't master all the controls, you're going to find yourself having a frustrating time trying to beat this. That being said, however, this doesn't make the game not fun. Think back to when you got your first ever video game. Did you know how to play it yet? Of course not, but you played it and learned its functions, then you got better at it and so on. Chameleon Twist is the same, though it may take a little longer to some than others due to its unique style. As the game was very experimental for its time, it will seem to put people off trying it because it's like having to learn a new language to a mild extent, because you can't just jump into it like you would Super Mario 64 or Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon or Donkey Kong 64. You need to spend time with it and learn it properly. Then you can really enjoy it and make progress. It's not for everyone. I personally like it a lot, even though I'm honestly pretty rubbish at it, but a lot of people might find it a little too intimidating at first glance. Don't be put off by that. It is worth spending time with. It's a piece of art in a sense, showcasing unique things that could be done with a genre already fairly well established and offering a new take on what we would expect. Would I recommend it? Yes, to platformer fans who missed out on it. It's difficult for me to recommend it to everyone as much as I'd like to due to its unusual gameplay style. As I said earlier, the style was so unique that it worked in its favour, but also against it. But the developers deserve applause because no other platformer was doing this, so it really is a work of creativity and psychedelic awesomeness. Now, I would have included a flaws section for this game, showcasing all the things that are a bit frustrating or a little bit difficult, things that maybe are a problem for the game as a whole. But then again, I've already really covered those as the video's gone on. Like, it's hard to get skillful tongue control in the game, and it's hard to aim directions where you're firing your enemies sometimes. Various things like that, I've covered that mostly throughout the game. But overall, and all in all, I personally really like it. And I think that if you haven't played it and you're a platformer fan, then you definitely should. Understandably, like I said, it's very unique to itself. There aren't many games that did this, or any for that matter. And because of its unique, different take on the platforming genre, it may seem a bit intimidating to some. And that's it for today's Video Game Cemetery. Thank you so much for coming by and checking out Chameleon Twist and my last episode of Series 1. Series 2 will be starting next year sometime, and it's going to have a lot of changes. It's going to be a lot more upgraded. Please leave a like, a comment or a subscribe, and please share my video with people that love game reviews or retro gaming or just this game Chameleon Twist in general. It really does help my channel. I really do appreciate it, and it helps me to stay active. Just want to say a special thanks to Brian, who does my channel art and has done so for the whole year. He requested this video back when I was filming episode 3, and I've finally gotten around to it at the end of the year, at the end of the series. So please support him in his artwork. Here he is, this is his Twitter. Please visit him, check him out, and support him. Really good artist, really good artist. Merry Christmas to all, Happy New Year to all, and I'll see you all in 2020. Peace out.